Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, and everybody else West Coast. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, what we're going to do is try to do a special today. Hopefully this works. This is the last minute thing I thought up. We're going to go ahead and try to listen to these impeachment hearings, okay? So hopefully join me and we'll see what's going on. Let me get this turned up and see what happens here. You see if anything happens. Absolutely nothing. Well, let's see here. Make sure we got everything turned on, plugged in, and we'll just have to bear with me for a second. I'm going to jump up out of here and go see what's going on with this and why it's not working. So let me turn this volume up maybe. Nope. So it should be coming through for you guys. The USB mic. Okay, so we're going to have to add a regular mic here. So let's go up to the main ticker, add an audio input, create new. Okay. Device, Realtek high definition. Okay, do that. And let's see. USB. USB. What the hell's going on here? USB, audio input, capture device. We'll get this worked out. Check something here. See what this is. Where's it at? I'm live streaming. I'm currently live. Mon Valley Radio live. Stream. Where's it at? This is insane. It's not showing, even though it's recording. What is this? Am I doing something wrong? There's nothing happening there. That should be feeding right into this unit here. It's insane. If I take... Okay, let's do... This is nuts, folks. I'm not having a good day here. I go over here to Mon Valley Radio YouTube. Oh my God. This has got to be, this should be blasting my ears out right now. Let me put this down and go over here. Where is it at? This is nuts. This is insane. It's not fucking working.
This mob got organized so open because, as they would later scream in these halls, it had been months before the attack. They were sent here by the president. They were invited here by the president of the United States of America. And when they showed up, knowing of these reports that the crowd was angry and it was armed, here's what Donald Trump told them. President Trump whipped the crowd into a frenzy, exhorting followers, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And then he aimed straight at the Capitol.
Where is...
You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength.
Why you gotta search for this shit?
Strong. He told them to fight like hell, and they brought us hell on that day.
Okay, can you hear that?
Incited by President Trump, his mob attacked.
I don't think the radio people can hear it.
Unfolded
So I gotta work on that. Oh, jeez.
before a horrified nation.
We'll get this working.
According to those around him at the time, this is how President Trump reportedly responded to the attack.
Okay, so we're going over here.
In sight, in public, delight,
I told you it's a mangled news, bud.
confusion as to why others around him.
I don't understand why the radio's not picking it up.
Trump incited the January 6th attack, and when his mob overran and occupied the Senate and attacked the House and assaulted law enforcement, he watched it on TV like a reality show.
Okay,
He reveled in it,
see it, did he?
and he did nothing
Don't even make a difference.
as commander-in-chief.
Oh,
Instead,
jeez, come on.
he served as the inciter, sending tweets and sympathizing with the insurrectionists. Over 4:17 p.m., over 3 hours after the beginning of the siege, for the very first time he spoke out loud, not on Twitter, spoke out loud to the American people. Here's what he said. I know your pain. I know you're hurt. So you might be saying, all right, the president is going to console us now. He's going to reassure America. He knows our pain. He knows we're hurt. We've just seen these horrific images of officers being impaled and smashed over the head. We've just been under attack for 3 hours. But here's what he actually goes on to say. I know your pain. I know you're hurt.
There we go.
We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. So you think he's about to decry the mayhem and violence, the unprecedented spectacle of this mob attack on the U.S. Capitol, but he's still promoting the big lie that was responsible for inflaming and inciting the mob in the first place. If anyone ever had a doubt as to his focus that day, it was not to defend us, it was not to console us, it was to praise and sympathize and commiserate with the rampaging mob. It was to continue to act as inciter-in-chief, not commander-in-chief, by telling the mob that their election had been stolen from them. Even then, after that vicious attack, he continued to spread the big lie. And as everyone here knows, Joe Biden won by more than 7 million votes, and 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. But Donald Trump refused to accept his loss even after this attack. And he celebrated the people who violently interfered with the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in American history, and did that at his urging. And when he did, in this video, finally tell them to go home in peace, he added this message. We love you. You're very special. Distinguished members of the Senate, this is a day that will live in disgrace in American history. That is, unless you ask Donald Trump. Because this is what he tweeted before he went to bed that night at 6:01 p.m. Not consoling the nation, not reassuring everyone that the government was secure, not a single word that entire day condemning the violent insurrection. That's what he says. These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever.
Okay, so I think we're working
These
here.
are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so
I'm
unceremonious.
going to take the headphones off, see what's coming off across the
In other words, this was all
Mon Valley Radio live
natural
stream, okay?
and
YouTube.
foreseeable
Hold on.
to Donald Trump. At the beginning of the day, he told you it was coming. At the end of the day, he basically says, I told you this would happen. And then he adds, remember this day forever. And then he adds, not as a day of disgrace, a day of horror and trauma as the rest of us remember, but it's a day of celebration, a day of commemoration. And if we let it be correctionary justice,
That's not good,
all
folks.
this is totally appropriate. Senators, the stakes of this trial could not be more serious. Every American, young and old and in between, is invited to participate with us in this essential journey to find the facts and share the truth. Trials are public events in a democracy, and no trial is more public or significant than an impeachment trial. Because the insurrection brought shocking violence, bloodshed, and pain in the nation's capital, and we will be showing relevant clips of the mob's attack on police officers and other innocent people. We do urge parents and teachers to exercise close review of what young people are watching here. And please watch along with
try to
them
do
if you're
this.
allowing them to watch. The impeachment managers will try to give warnings before the most graphic and disturbing violence that took place.
Okay, let's see what we got here.
We believe that the manager's comprehensive and meticulous presentation will lead to one powerful and irresistible conclusion. Donald Trump committed a massive crime against our Constitution and our people, and the worst violation of the presidential oath of office in the history of the United States of America. For this, he was impeached by the House of Representatives, and he must be convicted by the United States Senate. Before I close, I want to address a constitutional issue still lingering from yesterday's argument. The president obviously is still exploring ways to change the subject and talk about anything other than his responsibility for inciting the attack. We heard a lot yesterday about his claim that this incitement of the insurrection was perfectly appropriate because it's somehow protected by the First Amendment. And this little diversion caught my eye because I've been a professor of constitutional law and the First Amendment for decades. And as we'll demonstrate over the course of the trial, the factual premise and the legal underpinnings of that claim are all wrong. They present President Trump as merely like a guy at a rally expressing a political opinion that we disagree with, and now we're trying to put him in jail for it. That has nothing to do with the reality of these charges or his constitutional offense. The particular political opinions being expressed are not why we impeached the president and have nothing to do with it. It makes no difference what the ideological content of the mob was. And if we license and forgive incitement to violent insurrection by militant Trump followers this week, you can be sure there will be a whole bunch of new ideological flavors coming soon. As we'll demonstrate with overwhelming evidence, portraying Trump as a guy on the street being punished for his ideas is a false description of his actions, his intent, and the role that he played on January 6th when he willfully incited an insurrectionary mob to riot at the Capitol. Last week, 144 constitutional scholars, including Floyd Abrams, a ferocious defender of free speech, Charles Freed, President Reagan's Solicitor General, Stephen Calabrese, the co-founder of the Federalist Society, released a statement calling the president's First Amendment arguments legally frivolous, adding, "We all agree that the First Amendment does not prevent the Senate from convicting President Trump and disqualifying him from holding future office." They went on to say, "No reasonable scholar or jurist could conclude that President Trump had a First Amendment right to incite a violent attack on the seat of the legislative branch, or then to sit back and watch on television as Congress was terrorized and the Capitol sacked." Incitement to violence is, of course, not protected by the First Amendment. That's why most Americans have dismissed Donald Trump's First Amendment rhetoric simply by referring to Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes's handy phrase, "You can't shout fire in a crowded theater." But even that time-honored principle doesn't begin to capture how off-base the argument is. This case is much worse than someone who falsely shouts fire in a crowded theater. It's more like a case where the town fire chief, who's paid to put out fires, sends a mob not to yell fire in a crowded theater, but to actually set the theater on fire. And who then, when the fire alarms go off and the calls start flooding into the fire department asking for help, does nothing but sit back, encourage the mob to continue its rampage, and watch the fire spread on TV with glee and delight. So then we say this fire chief should never be allowed to hold this public job again, and you're fired and you're permanently disqualified, and he objects. And he says, we're violating his free speech rights just because he's pro-mob or pro-fire or whatever it might be. Come on. I mean, you really don't need to go to law school to figure out what's wrong with that argument. Here's the key. Undoubtedly, a private person can run around on the street expressing his or her support for the enemies of the United States and advocating the overthrow of the United States government. You've got a right to do that under the First Amendment. But if the president spent all of his days doing that, uttering the exact same words, expressing support for the enemies of the United States and for overthrowing the government, is there anyone here who doubts that this would be a violation of his oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that he or she could be impeached for doing that? Look, if you're President of the United States, you've chosen a side with your oath of office, and if you break it, we can impeach convict, remove, and disqualify you permanently from holding any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. As Justice Scalia once said, memorably, you can't ride with the cops and root for the robbers. And if you become inciter-in-chief to the insurrection, you can't expect to be on the payroll as commander-in-chief for the Union. Trump was the president of the United States, and he'd sworn to preserve, protect, and elections and dozens of other federal laws that are well known to all of you. When he incited insurrection on January 6th, he broke that oath. He violated that duty. And that's why we're here today. And that's why he has no credible constitutional defense. I'll tell you a final sad story in this kaleidoscope of sadness and terror and violence. One of our Capitol officers who defended us that day was a longtime veteran of our force, a brave and honorable public servant who spent several hours battling the mob as part of one of those blue lines defending the Capitol in our democracy. For several hours straight, as the marauders punched and kicked and mauled and spit upon and hit officers with baseball bats and fire extinguishers, cursed the cops, and stormed our Capitol, he defended us and he lived every minute of his oath of office. And afterwards, overwhelmed by emotion, he broke down in the rotunda. And he cried for 15 minutes. And he shouted out, "I got called an N-word 15 times today." And then he recorded, "I sat down with one of my buddies, another black guy, and tears just started streaming down my face. And I said, 'What the F, man? Is this America?'" That's the question before all of you in this trial. Is this America? Can our country and our democracy ever be the same if we don't hold accountable the person responsible for inciting the violent attack against our country, our capital, and our democracy, and all of those who serve us so faithfully and honorably? Is this America? Mr. Nagus will now provide a roadmap of our evidentiary case.
So far, it's pretty good, folks. There you go. So, yeah, we're getting right there. There's 2 minutes left from our show, and we're going to have it better tomorrow. I think I know what the problem is now.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, counsel, like several of you, I am a child of immigrants. And as a son of immigrants, I believe firmly in my heart that the United States is the greatest republic that this world has ever known. A hallmark of our republic, since the days of George Washington, has been the peaceful transfer of power. For centuries, we've accepted it as fact. Unfortunately, sadly, we know now that we can no longer take that for granted. Because as lead manager Raskin explained on January 6th, the peaceful transition of power was violently interrupted when a mob stormed this Capitol and desecrated this chamber. As you'll see during the course of this trial, that mob was summoned, assembled, and incited by the former President of the United States, Donald Trump. And he did that because he wanted to stop the transfer of power so that he could retain power, even though he had lost the election. And when the violence erupted, when they were here in our building with weapons, he did nothing to stop it. If we are to protect our republic and prevent something like this from ever happening again, he must be convicted. Now, I want to be very clear about what we will show you during the course of this trial.
Okay, folks, this
My
is
fellow managers present our case to you
okay,
today,
folks. This is
tomorrow.
what we're going to do is we're going to fix this much better tomorrow and get that set up and get it taken care of. So yeah, I got a pretty good clue on what to do, and we'll go ahead and get that taken care of. So anyway, let's see what's going on with this. Okay, so anyway, we're done. Now, you guys have a good day. I'm going to play the music for the radio, say goodbye to the radio. And I didn't even record this show, but that's good. So anyway, I think I'm gonna trash this one anyway, so knock it up to experience, right? All right, folks, let's say goodbye. All right, goodbye. You guys have a good day. Don't catch that Rona. Be careful.
Decades of music.